I was born in northern Saskatchewan, a place called Stanley Mission. And I had a very rough time when I was younger. As a baby, I was born in a sanatorium. My mother had tuberculosis, and I was born with weak lungs and had a lot of trauma, different things happened. And then I was adopted when I was 10 months old to a family that lived in Prince Albert. And they moved because my father worked for the penitentiaries, and he was actually transferred to Victoria to work at William Head. So anyway, I grew up here in Victoria. And back then, it was the mid 60s, 64 and so on. And I went to a school out in Colwood. And at that time, the First Nations people definitely were not thought very highly. And I had a lot of things happen to me in school because when I went there, there was only maybe myself and maybe another person that was First Nations. And so the kids used to throw stones at me, and they used to, pick on me and beat me up and stuff like that. So thank goodness I had friends that would help me sometimes, especially this one friend of mine. But anyway, then this would progress even into my teens. I had a couple of teachers, grade 3 and 4. The one teacher, she was quite cruel, and especially to me, and all the kids would go for lunch, and she would take my lunch and hold it up in the air and tell me if I could have it only if I could catch it, right? And I could never catch it. I could never reach it. So I never ate, and I'd never get my lunch, which used to make me really sick, and I was quite sickly in those years due to that and other things. But, and then I went into grade 6, grade 6, yeah, and had a teacher, and he took his books and hit me over the head with it. And these kind of things would go on. And I got to a point that, and with other things too, I got to a point where you just numb yourself to a point and you just don't feel it anymore. Then I got into my, and along with that too, even though the area that we lived in, that we moved into, was very modern, very this and that, but the people weren't that modern at the beginning and didn't want me in their yard. They'd phone my parents and say, we don't want that Indian kid in our yard. We don't want, her anywhere near our kids and things like this. So this started me off with all kinds of other curricular activities like drinking and stuff like that. But anyway, on to when I was older, I remember this. Now we're getting into the early 80s. I was going to work at the Eaton Centre, and I was walking down Douglas Street, and I was all dressed up, and this guy walked beside me or behind me, and he called me a dirty Indian, and I had nice heels on and, dressed up, for work. And he pushed me on the ground and on the cement, and I scraped both my legs, and I was bleeding, and my nylons were wrecked, and, he had called me a dirty Indian, and I wasn't allowed on the street. So I went to work like that. And there were several incidents like that would happen to me, but I just got used to it. It's a terrible thing to say, but I got used to it. And, even today, there's still a few things that happen, but very rare. And what I have to say about Truth and Reconciliation is that it did open a lot of people's eyes. It did, to the eyes that want to open. Not all, but to a lot, a good percentage. And, you know, I had people actually come up to me when this first happened and came out. I had people come up to me and say, you know, I'm so sorry. And I had one woman come up and cry to me, you know, and I felt really bad, you know. But, you know, people were recognizing and seeing for the first time the atrocities that have happened to Native people, you know, in everyday life, as well as the residential schools, and, you know, several other things. But these are horrible things. These, you know, why people can't see or could not see. We're people too, you know. We belong too, just like everybody else. And it breaks my heart because my birth family, who I got to meet, being adopted, and I actually got to meet my birth family in 2004. And the stories they told me of the residential school, the stories they told me about their life, you know, I was in tears for days, you know, because it was horrendous. Why people could ever, you know, treat other people like that, you know. I remember there was a time in my life, I was in my early 20s, and if people were to ask me, okay, what nationality are you? I'd say I'm Spanish, I'd say I'm Puerto Rican, I'd say anything but that I was Native, because I was not proud of it. I didn't want that because I had had so much heartache and pain being a Native person that I didn't want anything to do with it at all. But today is a little bit different. I've gone back to my community. I learned about my culture. I've been through the sweat lodges. I learned about our people, our traditions. I even have my own Native name, you know, and I'm so proud of that. And I want to be able to teach that to my 4 grandchildren that I have, who I'm very proud of. And I hope they never, and I know, I'd hope that they will never endure that kind of, you know, ever get treated like that, ever. You know, and